So, the Seattle Kraken are going to be pretty stacked, eh? I know it's late, I wanted to make this video either way because I took some time to just go over the lists, take a look at all the teams, all 30 NHL teams that are participating in the Seattle expansion, view the protected lists and the unprotected lists, and I just want to talk about a few players here that I find notable enough to mention on the Seattle Kraken here in this video. So let's go over to the NHL's website, because they did publish a full article presented by Upper Deck. Of course, you gotta get the sponsor in there, talking about each of the 30 teams and all the players involved that are available in the expansion and that are protected. The only caveat to this list, though, is the fact that they don't actually list contracts, because some guys are UFAs and RFAs, and because they are in a free agent territory, they're technically available, like Gabriel Landeskog on the Avalanche and Ovechkin on the Capitals. Because their contracts have not been set in stone, they're technically there, but it isn't really the same as Seattle going in there and picking a player that is going to play for their team, so to speak. So what we're going to do is go over onto Cap Friendly, because they have themselves the expansion draft tool talking about all the players that are available, and it lists out the expiries. The green names are the ones that are actually eligible and are going to be sticking around. So going throughout the list here, there are a few really interesting names that I think are worth talking about at the very least. On Buffalo, you have the no-move clause waived Jeff Skinner, who is honestly kind of a meme at this point, but it's Jeff Skinner, man. This guy used to be crazy good. He's making $9 million a season until 2027. If the Seattle Kraken want to go out there and really do the Sabres a solid, who knows if there's a trade going out there. Okay, we're going to give you this prospect, that pick, if you take Skinner, and Seattle takes Skinner and maybe he becomes really good again. Who really knows there? There is an opportunity here for some good things. With Calgary, you have obviously Mark Giordano, the captain, 6.75 AAV until 2022, available in this year's expansion. Milan Lucic is also a guy who is over here, who actually waived his NMC to also be available here too. So Seattle, you guys do have options over there for the Calgary side of things. Carolina is where things get really interesting, because you do have Nino Niederreiter available as a name. That is a really interesting one in my opinion. I've always been a big fan of Nino Niederreiter. As well, you have Jake Gardner. So there's a veteran presence right there in Gardner. He's making $4 million till 2023, so he certainly does have some form of value still. For Chicago, the one that everybody is talking about is Adam Gaudette, but he is an RFA expiring this season, so you would need to sign him to a contract. Obviously, though, RFAs are a lot more secure than UFAs because you have the prime negotiating rights with RFAs. If Adam Gaudette goes over to Seattle and he does some pretty good things over there, it's going to really hurt me, man, as a Vancouver Canucks fan, because I didn't want to see Gaudette move, especially for Highmore. Ah, boy. Either way, there are some pretty good names on Colorado as well. Obviously, Eric Johnson waived his no-move clause, but the name that I'm really interested in over there is Jonas Donskoy, who is also available too. That would be a pretty interesting pickup for the Seattle Kraken. Columbus, obviously the one that everybody's talking about is Max Domi. We have him in the thumbnail over here. How crazy would it be for Domi to go from Arizona to Montreal to Columbus to Seattle? Mr. Worldwide over here. Okay, I mean, Mr. Worldwide, only really North America right there. Max Domi is probably one of the most interesting guys on here, because we do know that the Blue Jackets gave up a whole bunch to get him. Josh Anderson, in particular, was a pretty good player, and I know you got yourselves a draft pick in the Domi trade as well, but you signed this guy, you wanted to keep him on, you wanted to see what he was able to do in a new role, and I mean, for the most part, he still produced somewhat. It's just, he was playing in the fourth line as well for parts of the season, and I think part of that has to do with Tortorella. So the fact is, you didn't really get yourselves, in my opinion, what is a prime Max Domi season in Columbus. So now that he's available in the Seattle expansion, we'll see if he gets taken by Seattle. If he goes to another team, man, I don't know how good I feel about that, but this guy's going to have himself a bone to pick with all the other teams in the league, and just a big monkey to get off of his back. Next up, though, going over to Dallas, hey, Ben Bishop is available. You also have Vancouver Canucks legend Tanner Kiro over there, not to mention Blake Como. I'm a big fan of Como, to be honest. For Detroit, the big one everybody is talking about is Troy Stecher, because this guy, if he goes over, he's reunited with a goddad or something. Oh my goodness, Seattle, bro. You're gonna go ahead and do that to me? Really just twist my Canucks heart all the way around. Nemesnikov is also a guy available from Detroit as well, though, but Stecher, I think, is the prime example here. You know, you had to do it because they had to get Nick Leddy protected. He's the new guy you acquired. For Edmonton, hey, James Neal, right there. You have Jeff Skinner, you have James Neal. Available options right there. Neal was, of course, one of the earlier parts of the Vegas team when they started out, so if you have yourselves a guy taken in 2 straight expansion drafts, that could be a really little interesting piece of trivia over there. Skipping over Florida and going over to the LA Kings, hey, Jonathan Quick is technically available, but there are indeed other goaltenders that are there, so Nick Bjugstad and Rask are both guys from the Wild that I like. We'll see if they get taken. For Montreal, obviously the big one here is Carey Price. And we have been talking about Carey Price here. We got some more stuff to talk about them tomorrow. Pierre LeBrun had some tweets today talking about the entire situation as to whether or not the Seattle Kraken would actually go out there and take a chance on Carey. But if it's not Carey Price, hey, you got Paul Byron, you got Jonathan Drouin, you have Shea Weber technically, and Brett Kulak too. There are some names here that are available, so we'll see if Seattle goes out and chooses one or the other. Nashville has 3 interesting names that I wanted to talk about as well. Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, and Calle Jarnkrok. Jarnkrok's honestly the more interesting one in my opinion. I didn't really think that he would actually be available in the Seattle expansion here, but Duchene and Johansson, they're both making $8 million a season for at least 4 more years. So we'll see if Seattle tries to strike a deal or whatever. Hey, if we give you this pick or this prospect or whatever, can you please select Duchene or Johansson? And who knows if Seattle will go out there and do that. Next up, though, going over to the New Jersey Devils, PK Subban. That's the big one right here that I think a lot of people have been kind of glancing over, but because he's making $9 million a season until next year, it's a lot easier to say, okay, probably not Subban. But come on, man. It's PK Subban. If you have Drouin, Domi, and Subban all on the same team, oh my goodness. Dude, you could realistically reunite Carey Price and Subban on Seattle if you really wanted to. Sure, that would take up like $20 million right there. But come on. I know it's difficult to justify that, but come on. It's funny. Next up for the Islanders, though, Bailey and Eberle are both available, and those are 2 very high-quality NHL forwards, so if there's a deal going on, I would not be surprised in the slightest. New York is like, okay, we'll give you this prospect, just please don't take one of Bailey or Eberle. The Rangers, they have some guys there, Brendan Smith, Tony DeAngelo, names that we have heard before. Ottawa, similar kind of thing. I mean, they have Evgeny Dadonov exposed, so if you want to go out there, add maybe another scorer with Neal and Skinner, you can have Dadonov as well. Philadelphia's got some scorers there too. Gostisbehere, Braun on the defensive side of things, and Voracek and Van Riemsdyk, both available too. Now, the money is something you'll definitely have to be thinking about if you're Seattle going out there and making your picks, but boy oh boy, James Van Riemsdyk and Voracek, man. One of those guys is probably going to be taken from Philly if I'm going to be honest here, as they both could provide a pretty good scoring touch to a new team. For Pittsburgh, hey, Zucker's available here, Tanev's available here as well. I'd probably guess one or the other is going to be taken. I could see Zucker being the guy, though. Let's skip over San Jose here and go over to St. Louis, where Vladimir Tarasenko is the obvious one. Now, you still have Vince Dunn that's also available too, but he is an RFA, so you will have to negotiate a contract with that guy. But Tarasenko is the guy that I think is everybody's target over here, just looking at the talent profile that he has and whether or not he's going to be fully healthy. Going over to Tampa, though, man, they have some names. Palat, Gord, Johnson, Killorn, Coleman, Maroon. Coleman, of course, UFA, so he's not really going to be in the same boat there. If you get Patrick Maroon and you play this guy in the Seattle system and they win the Cup in their first year like Vegas almost did, you could have yourselves a 4-time straight champion in Maroon. How crazy is that? I'm saying all this right here because I do think Seattle, based off of the players that are available, they could be a really good team right away, dude. And, I mean, any of these Tampa Bay guys, Gord, Palat, Johnson, or Killorn, could really help them out in that department. Then you go over to Toronto, where one of Kerfoot or Jared McCann is going to be taken. You know it's going to go down like that. Whichever one is taken, the other guy takes over to third-line center spot in Toronto, and then you go over to Vancouver, where their entire list is just pretty bad, man. I mean, come on. Eriksson, Beagle, Roussel, Virtanen, McEwen, these guys are not really needle movers in my opinion, so, I mean, we'll see who happens to be taken. It might be Holtby, I'm not sure. Might be McEwen, which I honestly would feel pretty sad about, but you know what, it is what it is. Then going over to Washington, hey, Hagelin's a guy, he's in there, he's a fast dude. Schultz and Jensen are pretty capable defenders in my opinion. And then you have Alex Ovechkin, which doesn't really work the same way because he is a UFA. For the Jets though, Dylan DeMello is the guy that I think everybody is surprised to see. He wanted to stay in Winnipeg. It's tough to get free agents over there, and they're going to be exposing him. He's got $3 million a season until 2024. He could be a really good pickup for the Seattle Kraken, man. So that's just kind of my overall thoughts about the lists here. I didn't make a mock draft or whatever because it's so difficult to try to predict what you think should happen with the money involved, with the positional needs involved. I'm just saying right here, man, from the selection of players available, Seattle could make a really good team to kick things off and stick around. So talk to me in the comments what you think about the Seattle expansion over here. I'm still kind of interested in Subban and Price, man. That could be a really interesting combination there if you really wanted to make it happen, but it's unlikely because it would cost so much money. But either or, talk to me in the comments what you think. If you enjoyed this. Josh Wilson 99, and bye.